Alright, so got the Telecaster body here, sanded down, the sealer off. I taped off the front just so to hope to keep any kind of spills from going onto the top that I would have to deal with later. We're going to practice on the back basically. We're going to do it's a fabric dye on the wood. You let it dry, sand it back, and then finally finish it. I did a test strip here. We're going for purple burst. We'll see how it turns out. It might be kind of a blue burst depending on what we can get. So we're going to start here. It's just fabric dye, shake it well. We're going to add it on there. You can kind of blend it with water. So I know from my tests that at least we want to start out with pretty full strength. Yes, I just don't want to dye my hand. It won't hurt anything, but I don't want dyed fingers for. So here we go. Point of no return. Well, not point of no return. Can always sand back, but we're testing this on the back so that we don't have to sand back on the front. I'm just putting it on with an old piece of t-shirt. Just smoothing it a little bit with just a dry rag so that I don't get build up spots in one spot and not in the other. Alright, I'm going to take a little bit out of the middle with 600 grit just to give it a little bit lighter in the middle, darker on the outside. And then we'll move on to the next color. Can't tell how blue that looks on camera, but it looks pretty good from here. I'm going to let that dry a bit. I'm going to do blue around the outside, then let it dry a little more, and then we'll come back, we'll sand a little bit, and we'll come back with the purple. Alright, so finishes on the back. It may be hard to tell on camera that it did turn out kind of purple. The headstock may be a little more than the back, is a little darker. Maybe not quite as purple as can be. It's got a coat of tung oil on it to kind of seal the color in. I think on the front I'll probably dilute the black a little bit and try to keep it a lighter color. So I'm going to do a little testing on that. I did a little bit of sanding today, and then the staining. I think I'm another 2-3 hours into it, so just as kind of a time frame. They say it can be a weekend project. You know, if you're painting it, I don't think so. I mean, you gotta let the stuff dry, you know. I probably could have done the staining quicker if I had used alcohol instead of water, but margin for error is a little less so when you're using water, and so this is my first go at this, so we'll leave it at that. I might do something slightly different on the front, but we'll see. Alright, so the one thing we forgot to do when we were originally doing this, which we should have done, was measure the scale length and make sure everything is in its right spot. Put the neck back in, it's not bolted up. I put the bridge back on, it's not bolted up. We want to measure from the nut, which is the far end of the bridge here. It should be, standard fender scale is 25.5, and that's about where it hits on the bridge there, so I think we're good. It's got a little bit of space to move forward and a lot of space to move back, which is what you want. If you don't know the scale, you can measure from the nut to the 12th fret, and then if you double that, it will be your scale length, and the scale length is the length of the open part of the string, so from the bridge to the nut. So definitely a check I should have made before doing the rest of this. Okay, so body's basically finished. The stain is done. Basically, you saw the process. Then I went over it with wipe-on poly, and it's pretty easy to use. You just wipe it on. It dries fairly quickly. You can recoat in a few hours, and it's not too bad. Sand in between the coats with some pretty fine sandpaper. I won't make you watch it. It's just wipe on, wipe off. For the neck, I did tongue oil. This one's kind of the same deal. You wipe it on, but then you wait 10 or 15 minutes, and then you kind of buff it off with a clean rag. It's another simple process. Yeah, it makes the neck feel a little smoother. I think that the wipe-on poly does a little bit better job of protecting it's a more robust finish, which honestly don't really care about. Things get bumped and dinged, and that's just the way it works. So the last thing we got to do before we are done with the finish is scrape the binding, which is a load of fun. Basically use, well, I mean, you can make a tool, you can sand it, you can tape it off before you do it. None of that works. I mean, taping works okay, but a lot of times it gets bleed through anyway. So what you need is just a regular razor blade. I like the single edge ones. This is not exactly what you would find in a utility knife. Those are kind of more of a triangle-y shape. This one's got a spot. It's just easier for me to hold. It doesn't really matter. And you just scrape it off till it's white again, and then you're done. Alright, so you should take your razor blade and you scrape along this white part here to take off any stain or anything that's on the binding. What I try to do is I kind of hold my finger on it, so when I put my finger against the face of the body here, it puts the blade at the right distance in, so that you scrape just the binding and not the wood under past that. You can tape off the razor blade if you're worried about cutting your finger or anything like that. Definitely worth using a nice and sharp blade, but you just, and
and I'm wearing reading glasses here to get in close so that I can see exactly what I'm doing. You just... got a nice spot here. And now you just go all the way around. It's a pain, it's a long process, but I mean, binding looks cool after you're done. So the main thing to do is just take your time with it. Try to get whatever works for you. If you want to make a tool, there's a bunch of different ones that you can make that does the same thing as holding your hand at a different spot. So you scrape this side and then you scrape the top side and you're done. You got a nice clean binding while the rest of the guitar is dark. So here we go, round and around.